Revolutionary greetings. Haki Kweli Shakur coming back at you again on a cold winter night. Black History Month. New African History, Our Story. 365. RBG Black Academics, man. You know, this is February, so I decided that I had to do this video to get it in because we had a pivotal point in the hills of North America and the Empire of the United States of America. We had a pivotal point for New African Black people here in North America, man. And this is upon us. It has come upon us. Another year, February 21st, we'll be commemorating and memorializing our great ancestor, our great Baba, our great teacher, a great scholar, a great warrior, a great, revolutionary. I mean, some people can even call him a prophet or whatever you want to call him. He's our everything. Like they say, he's our black shining prince. And we come upon this time at a pivotal time that our great Baba, Omawale, Malcolm X, 50 years, man, assassination. His 50-year anniversary of him being assassinated and taken away from New African people here in the hills of North America. And I decided to make this video because I think 50 years is a pivotal point from then to now on where we are at in the state that we are in as New African people in North America. And 50 years, that's a long time, you dig, that has come upon us as far as leadership, where we at, as far as a people, mentally, physically, spiritually, where are we, man? And as I reflect upon it, as I dedicate this video to Baba, Malcolm X, El Hajj, Malik Shabazz, aka Baba Omawale, where are we? Where we go from here? What our next 50 years gonna look like? You see what I'm saying? And we gotta understand, we only 100 or something, 30 something years removed from technically what they claim is, out of slavery. Then we done went through the most harshest periods. Jim Crow, the 60s and 70s struggle, the 80s, the drug war on our people and our communities here in North America, where we at, and our internal hindrance, which is the eternal violent oppressive actions on our own that still stands in our community today. Where are we since Baba Omawale was assassinated? Which brings me to the reason why I'm making this video. And I think this short, quick video that I'm going to drop, matter of fact, I'm dedicating it to Baba Omawale, Malcolm X, and the person who wrote this, one of our great New African scholars, Atiba, Shanna, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. He's one of our, great writers, great theorists, great political, minds of the New African independence movement. A true revolutionary, and he was a living example, because he's no longer here either, of what I'm gonna talk my topic that I'm gonna talk to you about today, which is called Malcolm X, Model of Personal Transformation, by Atiba, Shanna, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. And the reason why I chose this topic, because it's 50 years ADM, man. And we lost Baba on this day, so I felt like I'm gonna make this point on personal transformation. Not only for where it starts with you, it starts with me, it starts in our household, it starts with us as a person, your own self, which we call the supreme energy life force. All the people that's out there that's not in their right personal space right now, I think this video is for you. And technically, because if we don't transform ourselves personally, there's no way that we can liberate our people. And this video is also specifically, you know, a message to street orgs, the Keyways, the Don Moves, the BDs, the GDs, the VLs, all the new African street organization and street tribes. Pay attention to this video, and all my people that's trapped behind the prison walls, who are caught up in this daily cycle of criminality and criminal mentalities. This video is for you, but it's also for your everyday proletariats, your everyday lumpen that's out here in the streets trying to survive, and for even the people who are living a revolutionary lifestyle. This video is for you also, because if we don't get no personal transformation from ourselves and within our communities, there's no way, I ain't gonna say there's no way, but how is our communities going to look 50 years later when our kids step into our footsteps, step into our places, when we're no longer, in those positions no longer? How is our future going to look, for our future generations? Because it's already been 50 years, and I hate to say it, we got a long ways to go from what I see, because we're in shambles in some areas. We're in total shambles. We're still against each other and all that. But first, let me go ahead and do this first before I get into this, revolutionary literature by one of our great ancestors no longer here. So, let me pour this out for Baba, Omawale, Malcolm X, Elhad Shabazz. Pour this libation out for you. Ashe. I pour this libation out to the great Atiba Shani, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe O to our great ancestors. Let me just go ahead and hop right into it, because this video is not going to be long. Let me just go ahead and hop into it right now. And I'm going to do a little summary after I read all this. And this is a message for all y'all. This is a message for my Keyways, my Don Moves, my everyday street cats. Pay attention. And new African community overall, pay attention. This is called Malcolm X, Model Personal Transformation by Atiba Shani, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. Malcolm X often used the concept of prison as a metaphor to describe the situation of new African people. He implied that just as those in actual prisons are expected to rehabilitate themselves as a condition for their release, we must transform ourselves as a people. As a condition for securing our freedom from oppression, Malcolm's autobiography offers evidence of the pivotal role that prisons played in his transformation, especially in chapters 10, 11, and 12, and it provides guidance for imprisoned new Africans who can begin a process of self-transformation similar to the undertaken by Malcolm. We have the added benefit of knowing the general outline of our identity, purpose, and direction. Although in prison, we are not defined by this condition. We are new Africans. Identity, nationality, citizens of an oppressed nation. Our purpose is to secure the independence of the nation. And socialist development is the direction. The time spent in prison should be devoted to our self-transformation, to the further development of our identity, commitment to our purpose, and the pursuit of knowledge and skills needed to aid our people in realization of the socialist development of our society. While in prison, Malcolm began to think in a systematic, critical way about his past lifestyle, about the world and the society he lived in. He began to question the way things worked and realized that the change in his life and in the society was both possible and necessary. While in prison, Malcolm began to think, but only after he began to read. Prior to his imprisonment, Malcolm had been enclosed in the world of the hustler, the player, the pimp, the gangster, the parasite, and he couldn't imagine himself outside of that world. Reading exposed Malcolm to new worlds. It allowed him to see that there were alternatives to the lifestyles and the values of the social parasite. While in prison, Malcolm began to think and read, but only after he had been encouraged to do so by someone that he respected who had taken an unselfish interest in him. Malcolm was later motivated by a new sense of self-worth an identity and purpose, as his family introduced him to the religious and political philosophy of Islam, as taught by Elijah Muhammad, practiced by the Nation of Islam. Soon after leaving prison, Malcolm began to effect change upon the world, but he was able to do so because he had to first change himself while in prison. Many in prison New Africans can follow this example, change themselves, become new men and women committed to acting upon the world to effect this radical transformation. As with Malcolm, such change would more likely occur if imprisoned New Africans are encouraged and assisted by individuals, groups, or community seeking to make them a part of a collective process of redemption and progressive social development. When in prison, New Africans read Malcolm's autobiography. We should reflect upon our own lives, as we can easily identify with Malcolm and see similarities between his life and our own. In fact, Malcolm charges us to examine our lives when he says, "Why am I as I am?" To understand that of any person, his whole life from birth must be reviewed. All of our experiences fuse into our personality. Everything that ever happened to us is an ingredient. One, critical review of one's own life is the first step in the process of personal transformation. It is also the hardest step to take because it requires that one be brutally honest and unreserved in the examination and critique of one's fears and shortcomings. Reading Malcolm can help us to understand how critical self-examination is done. What is there in Malcolm's life that's not in our own? Who was he, if not one of us? What does Malcolm mean to us, if not that we, like him, can change? What does his prison experience mean to us, if not that we, too, can use the prison as an environment within which we undergo our own metamorphosis? As Malcolm looked back on his life as a parasite, he acknowledged the degree to which it was a result of bad choices he had made, due in part to the wrong kinds of heroes and the wrong kinds of influences. But those heroes and influences, those bad choices, should be examined within the context of society that helped produce them. We are all products of a unique form of colonial oppression. Most people enter prison thinking of surviving the experience, returning to their previous way of life. They spend most of their lifetime watching television, listening to music, playing sports, or working jobs linked in the operation of prison, e.g. kitchen or laundry or janitorial services. Educational programs in prison are designed so that only few prisoners may participate. Rare are the self-motivated prisoners who decide to educate and transform themselves. A prisoner has time that he can put in to good use. I'll put prison second to college as the best place for a man to go if he needs to do some thinking. If he's motivated in prison, he can change his life. I don't think anybody ever got more out of going to prison than I did. In fact, prison enabled me to study for more intensively than I would have in my life had gone differently and I had attended some colleges. Where else but in prison could I have attacked my ignorance by being able to study intensively, sometimes as much as 15 hours a day? 3. When convicted in 1946, Malcolm was first sent to prison in Charleston, Massachusetts, where he initially wasted his time engaging in aimless rebellion and drug use. He didn't begin to put time to good use until he was encouraged to do so by Bimby, an older con who spent many years in many prisons, but he had not wasted his time. Bimby was articulate and well-read, and he became a minister to Malcolm, who been drawn to Bimby because he was the first man I had ever seen command total respect with his words. Bimby reignited within Malcolm the passion for words and the acquisition of knowledge that he had begun to lose in the 8th grade. He urged Malcolm to take advantage of the prison library and to enroll in some of the correspondence courses allowed by prisons. Malcolm admitted that at that point in his life, his working vocabulary may have been only 200 words, which together with his penmanship made it possible for him to write a decent letter. He first took a correspondence course in English. He began to read from the prison library, saying later that I have often reflected upon the new visitors that reading opened to me. I knew right there in prison that reading had changed forever the course of my life. As I see it today, the ability to read awoke inside me a long dormant craving to be mentally alive. However, it would take more time and different motivation for Malcolm's development. The appreciation for reading just described initially, his reading was aimless, and he was motivated by little more than a desire to become more literate hustler. He hadn't transformed that criminal colonial mentality. It wasn't until Malcolm was transformed to another prison that he moved beyond his mere book reading motions. Pretty soon, I would have quit even these motions unless I had received the motivation that I did. Malcolm was transferred to the Norfolk Prison Colony in Concord, Massachusetts. In 1948, there he received a letter from his brother Filbert, who said that he had joined the Nation of Islam, and he urged Malcolm to pray for deliverance. Malcolm wasn't ready to hear anything about religion. His attitude changed, however. After that, he received a letter from another of his brothers, Reginald, because Reginald knew how Malcolm's street hustler mind worked. His approach was more effective than Filbert's. Reginald told Malcolm to stop eating pork, to stop smoking cigarettes, and that he would show Malcolm how to get out of prison. Malcolm took the bait. What initially regarded as probably con to be worked on the prison authorities turned out to be the next step in the process of his transformations. For the next years, I was the nearest thing to a hermit in the North Prison Colony. I never had been more busy in my life. I still marvel at how swiftly my previous life thinking pattern slid away from me. It as though someone else had living by hustling and crime. I would be startled to catch myself thinking in a remote way of my earlier self as another person. It was at this point in his life that Malcolm began to read selectively and critically, and to develop intellectually discipline, and to complement his spiritual and moral development. For new African women and men held in the U.S. prisons, Malcolm stands as an example of the way in which we can free ourselves. Even though behind prison walls, Malcolm attained his freedom long before he was released from prison, when he began to read, to think, to question his old habits and values. If Malcolm had not used his time in prison to charge his life, he would not have left us ideas and life worthy of examination and immolation. Moreover, if Malcolm had not changed his life while in prison, he would have returned to the life of criminal and the oppressed colonial subject. The parable of Job, which Elijah Muhammad used in introducing Malcolm to the Nation of Islam soon after Malcolm's release from prison, is instructive. Mr. Muhammad told the gathering that Malcolm had been strong while in prison. Malcolm reports that he then said, when God had bragged about how faithful Job was, the devil said only God's hedge around Job kept Job so faithful. Remove that protective hedge, the devil told God, and I would make Job curse you to your face. The devil could claim that hedge in prison. I just used Islam, Mr. Muhammad said, but the devil would say that now out of prison I will return to my drinking, smoking dope, and a life of crime. We can go through motions of changing our lives while in prison, or otherwise, but the truth comes when the prison doors are open, or when otherwise we're confronted with the situation which test our characters. Nevertheless, before we can remain faithful, we must first become faithful. Malcolm's prison transformation can be a model of our own. New African revolutionary nationalist, Atiba, Shanna, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. That was the personal transformation of Malcolm X, written by Owusu Yaki Yakubu. And the message that I'm trying to get across in this video right now to all my new African males out there, and even my new African women out there that has fell victim to the society, poverty, oppression that the United States government has created in the all-out 400-year war that this government and this country has did to new African black people. I just want you to get this, man. It all starts with you. We must start to come together. Why? Because we must think about our future generations. Because right now, we must pull up our pants, man, pull down our skirts, and get our minds right, and become people of examples of personal transformation. This is your job. This is your destiny. We can't continue this no longer, because you got to think about the next 50 years. That's going to be a century since Malcolm X been gone. And what has changed in our societies? Who are the people that's willing to change personally, to liberate the new African nation and new African people, man? Who's willing to do it? Keyways, you can do it. Damus, you can do it. BDs, you can do it. GDs, you can do it. Think about it, man. Because what you're doing right now is not going to help the generation that's going to come from behind you, man. You know, and I ain't trying to make no excuses for it. The time is now for a personal transformation in your life. Because check this out. This goes back into a lot of indigenous spiritual traditions and beliefs back in the motherland of the continent. All of us came to this earth, came into a being with a destiny. That destiny is your job for you to remember that destiny that was given to you before you came into being. And I can guarantee you that that destiny is not criminality, man. It's not crime. It's not killing each other. You see what I'm saying? We must come together. The time is now to unite, or our future generations are going to suffer. This is what I always tell people, man, when they ask me about our future, and I always tell them this: do you want your kids to grow up in a society that you came from and that we live in now? I know you don't. Nobody does. You got to think about these kids, man. Put your community first. Put your kids first. And even if you ain't got no kids, put the kids in the community first. Put your people in the community first. You got to stop being parasites on your own community, man. We as a people, you as a person, have to destroy the parasite within your mentality and within your spirit to move forward, to be the example like Baba Malcolm X was, like Baba Atiba Shani was, Owusu Yaki Yakubu. We must be the examples now, because the next 50 years, we must be liberated as a people. And we must do it starting now. It's been 50 years since great Baba, our greatest leader, has been taken away from us. And nothing has much in this society, nothing has changed much. We're still suffering from the drug wars. We're still suffering from eternal violent oppression on our own kind. Violent acts on our own kind. We're still going to jail. We're still being abusive in our households. We're still being abusive in our communities. We're still being parasites on each other. It's time, man. It's time to move on. Everything starts with us. We got to take accountability for our own selves and our own community and our own people. Right now. You must commit class suicide. You must stop being a colonial subject. You must stop being a colonial criminal. We didn't create none of this stuff. We're victims of it, yeah. But what you gonna do? The victim don't lay on his back all day. You know, what you want to continue to be that victim that's laying down, or you want to be that victim that get up and move forward and be the example of the person, be the example for people that's looking at you to be like, man, if he can do that, I can do that. This man was on the ground, on his back. He was down. He was through, mentally and physically. He was done. The New African prison struggle is a great example of, personal transformation, because we got people that's doing it daily. We got political prisoners that's doing it daily. We got street combatants, street people that's going into prison, coming out, mind change. They're changed personally. And this is effect on your character. This is your character. Your character is the most central important thing of spirituality, man. Your character. It's been 50 years. That's all I'm going to say, man. I'm going to close this video off. And I ask you the question. Where do you see New African black people in the hells of North America in the next 50 years? What you want your future generations to be 50 years from now? Do you want them to be in the same situation that we are right now? Or you want them to be in a situation of a liberated people? I'm going to sign off right here. Long live Baba Malcolm X. Long live El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Long live Atiba Shani Owusu Yaki Yakubu. Long live our New African people. Long live our new African ancestors, our new African elders who've been assassinated. Long live them. And free the land, free the black nation, free the people, and most important, free yourself, free your mind. Begin your personal transformation now to have an overwhelming effect on your community, your household, and yourself. Supreme Energy Life Force. Haki Kweli Shakur, Cedar Gabriel Prosser. Rebuild.